Good evening and welcome. We're live in London and across the world as the land of the free chooses its destiny. So join us for every twist and turn on an election night for history in the making and a night to remember. There's never been a US election quite like this one. Long, decisive and unpredictable. As the world and the United States tries to get a grip on the coronavirus pandemic, tonight will be the most exciting and unknown we've seen in a lifetime. A titanic struggle that will be finally resolved tonight for the most glittering prize in American politics. The two people who would be president have been campaigning like never before in places like Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, North Carolina, in a last ditch for all those important votes, hitting the Rust Belt and the southern states. Due to the pandemic, mail-in ballots have hit a record high, with early voters topping 102 million today. And President Trump started his campaign in places like Florida, in Minnesota, in Michigan, to ensure that he can keep those states. And Joe Biden's been campaigning heavily in Pennsylvania to ensure that he can get back the Rust Belt states that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. And I'm joined by some fantastic guests from across the political spectrum. So we have Chris, Marcus, Joseph and Catherine are joining us all around the UK. And this evening we're going to be joined by two American voters from Texas and Michigan, the two battleground states out of the 14 that have now changed in the past 8 hours from what we were looking at earlier today. So I want to start off with Chris. Chris, how do you think this election is going to pan out? Do you think Joe Biden is going to be elected the 46th president of the United States? Or do you think Donald Trump could be elected again?
Well, I think that is going to be a very close run election, and I don't think there's anybody across the globe who thinks otherwise. I would like to feel optimistic that Joe Biden will just scrape enough electoral votes to make his way into the White House. I think Donald Trump has sort of sealed his own fate in recent months with the kind of attitude that he's been having with his electorate and the dealings with the Black Lives Matter protests, and most obviously the dealing with coronavirus, something that has now killed far more Americans than the Vietnam War. So, and that is a distinction that has been brought up many a time. I hope, as I say, that Joe Biden will succeed in getting in. One thing that I have that sort of has come to my attention, that the three sort of states that I think we will need to keep an eye on the most is Florida, Texas, and Ohio. If Joe Biden is able to secure those three, then my understanding is that it's more or less a done deal for Joe Biden and the Democrats.
Great, thanks, Chris. Marcus, what are your thoughts on the election? How do you think this could play out?
Yeah, I mean, I like to be optimistic as well. I do sincerely hope that Biden wins. I think we know that regardless of what happens vote-wise tonight, it's not going to be easy for him. Even if he does win the votes, Trump's going to he's going to go down fighting. He's going to probably take it to the courts if he doesn't win the popular vote and the electoral college as well. So it's going to go on for a while. We're probably not going to know tonight or even in the next few days what's going to happen. But I'm trying to remain optimistic, and I'm very excited.
No, that's a good point, actually. Joseph, what do you think? Do you think that Biden could take all the Rust Belts, or do you think he could take Florida and Texas? Because there's more than one ways, obviously, for Biden to actually win the White House.
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to firstly broadly agree with what's been said so far, but I'm going to add my own sort of twist on that. I actually think he can afford to lose Texas. I don't think that's absolutely crucial to this campaign. However, although it's been shown to be a bit more marginal this time, we've got a lot more marginal states this time, given what happened in 2016. Obviously, Trump closed the gap on a lot of them, and then Hillary closed the gap on a lot of safe states. What I think will be crucial, if I could just sort of put my own twist on it, like I said, state-wise, I think is actually going to be Pennsylvania as well, because that's where a lot of the action has been happening. Michigan as well. These are all really crucial states. And I think as we see the results come in just gradually over the night, we're going to see basically, and this was what the shock of 2016 was that a bit like as you see constituencies come in this country, you can sort of see how the votes are swinging. Now, the reason why this one might be different is obviously not just because of coronavirus, but also because things might have been straightened out with, of course, the so-called Russian influence. People now have more of an eye over that. Whereas last time they probably weren't as vigilant against that as what they otherwise should have been. I mean, if we look at basically what happened last time, basically all of the marginal states all swung towards Trump, whereas all of the safe states, irrespective of whether they were safe Democrat or Republican, they all kind of swung towards Hillary. This time, I think we'll see a swing either way in sort of both sets, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but I do think, and I'm fairly hopeful, and the Biden campaign itself on the ground looks fairly hopeful that he should be able to cross the line. I think he'll probably getting about 320 or so electoral colleges. I may be made to swallow my words on that. This is America. We never know.
Yeah, you can do a Paddy Ashdown's. You need a hat by the end of the night if you want.
Well, I don't know about that. I think my wife might have something to say about that. Pieces.
Catherine, what are your thoughts on the election?
So just to say, I kind of agree with everything that's been said. I agree that Texas is probably not the clincher for Joe Biden. I don't think he can afford to lose it. I think Florida is probably key to the election. So my feeling is that Joe Biden is going to win the election, but it's just what happens after that with is Donald Trump going to concede? I don't believe he is. So it's what happens after this as well. We need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think really from what I've been watching today, I've been watching CNN all day pretty much. I think the 14 key states are going to be really interesting to watch, really. I think Pennsylvania has been really hit massively by not only just the Trump campaign, but heavily by Biden. So it's going to be interesting to see if Pennsylvania can be flipped, because if it can be flipped, then I think that will be really, really helpful for Biden. And then obviously, if you look across like Wisconsin, Minnesota, across the Rust Belt, it will be really interesting if all of those states can be flipped, because if they can, then it will be really interesting to see what else could happen, because Texas is still in play. It's a toss-up at the moment. So if that can be swung as well, then who knows how the night can be taken. So I think I want to hear like everybody's predictions, really. Chris, what prediction are you reckoning for both the Trump-Biden campaign?
Sorry, Dan. Something went wrong there. Could you just say that again for me?
I was saying, what do you think in your prediction on how the night could go? Could it go more heavily towards Biden? Could he get over like 350 electoral colleges, or could he go to more like 300?
I'm really not sure. Is the truth of it? I mean, he needs to win obviously 270, but I don't think it's going to be such a clear majority on, if that's what you're asking. I don't think he was going to get the sort of over 300 of the electoral colleges in that way. I just, like I said earlier, I think it's going to be a very clear-cut thing. It will be too close, and at this point, it's a bit early to tell.
Yeah, because we're still an hour away, well, just over an hour away from our first polls closing across the eastern states. Marcus, what are your predictions for tonight? Are you reckoning that Biden can really like storm ahead and take all 14 battleground states, or do you think he could just only take the Rust Belt states?
Well, obviously he's quite far ahead in the polls, but we know from experience that we don't want to trust the polls too much, and there could be quite a large margin of error. It's really difficult to say. I'm not sure I want to commit this early on. But if I have to give a ballpark, I'd say he's probably going to be around the 300 mark. That would be my guess. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a massive landslide. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. But it all comes down to what Trump does afterwards, really. Because, like we say, it's the numbers at the end of the night are one thing, but as Catherine said, he may well not concede. And it may go on for a lot longer, so we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, and I think that Pennsylvania said that some of the voting may go on until at least Friday, so not all the votes will be counted until then. So it will be interesting to see what happens until Friday. Catherine, what are your kind of like predictions? Do you have any predictions, or are you trying not to not eat your hat too early?
We haven't had any full results yet, so it's hard to say in which way it's going. Obviously, as said, we don't want to trust polls too much. We know what that leads to. So I think it's just a case of waiting and seeing what some of the results that come up first, and then can speculate from there.
Joe, because I know that you were saying about battlegrounds for Biden. What do you have any kind of predictions on the electoral college? Do you think he could go maybe like just over the threshold of 270, or do you think he can go further?
I think, interestingly, I did my own sort of prediction run the other day based on forms of analysis across various forms of websites. I think based on the research that's been conducted that I've seen, I came to a conclusion that Biden was going to get 340 electoral colleges, which is obviously quite substantial. Now, there are mitigating factors in that, but yeah, and it was over a week ago when I did this. A lot has changed since then, as it does in politics. But I think if I had to put my sort of, if I had to be stern in what I chose, I think Biden probably by about 300 colleges. That's where I would sit on a prediction.
No, that's interesting. So now I made the prediction a couple of days ago on where it could go, and I said Biden could win this if he took Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and I think Florida as well. He could get about 240. So if he did get those 4 states, then he's going to be a clear majority to take the White House. But then let's not forget that it's not just the presidential elections that are happening. We've also got House and Senate happening. So the House is going to be interesting because obviously the Democrats hold one of those already, and if they take the House, then everything changes dramatically. But then it will be the same if Donald Trump won, but then only the Democrats took the House and Senate. So it will be interesting to kind of see what happens, especially this evening and the next 7 hours, and see kind of how things play out really. If the House obviously turned Democrat and obviously Trump won, how do you think that's going to play out for Trump? Is it going to be difficult for him, or is it going to be a little more easier for the Democrats to try and kind of push through their agenda in the House and Senate? Catherine, sorry.
Sorry, I missed that. You just froze.
Oh, right. No, that's good. That's a good start.
Oh, well, I just froze.
Okay. So I said, if the Democrats took the House and Trump won, how do you think that's going to play out for Trump and the Democrats? Do you think the Democrats will be able to exactly push their agenda forward, or do you think Trump is going to find it even more hard to get things done?
So I personally, I think that's an unlikely outcome. But I think it's going to be a stalemate. Trump's going to so Trump would just veto anything that comes up, pretty much. So it's going to be difficult to say that anything's going to get done in America, which may be a better outcome if Trump's president, to be fair.
Yeah, I think really it could change really depending on how the night goes really. Marcus, how do you think it will be difficult for Trump to kind of get anything through if the Democrats took the House? Or if obviously Biden won, and obviously you have the Senate, the House, and the White House under control of the Democrats, what kind of things could you see kind of happen with obviously in the first 100 days if Biden wins?
Yeah, well, I mean, if Trump doesn't have overall control, then obviously it's difficult to say. He'd struggle to get things through, but also we know he's not really one for playing by the rules. So he would either find some sort of illicit way of manipulating things and getting his way, or perhaps just causing trouble and instead just vetoing things and slowing things down. And yeah, perhaps that would be a better outcome than Trump just getting his way. You know, if Biden wins and he can get his agenda through, then I think that's going to be a good thing overall. It's better than him not being able to. And if Trump, if Trump does win, I suppose it's perhaps better him not being able to have complete free reign with the Senate as well. It's difficult to say. Like I say, I wouldn't trust Trump to play by the rules if that happens. So he would probably have some dirty tricks up his sleeve, I would have thought.
You're on mute, Daniel.
That'd be a good idea if I unmute myself. This is a good start. I should know the technology. I said, so it's an interesting point for what you were saying, Marcus, is that obviously Trump has said that he could obviously do what he wanted if he didn't win, etc., and he could pretty much stay in the White House. But I think as well, if you've taken that into consideration, that he could do whatever he wanted, he's still going to have 2 months until inauguration on January 20th. So anything between now and January 20th could happen. So we don't know if he's going to want to twist his foot. So I noticed yesterday myself that I think he tweeted around about 46 times in one day, which is probably the most he's probably ever tweeted before in his life. But yeah, so I think it could be interesting to see how things go with Trump over the next 2 months, and he could do anything. Chris, what are your thoughts on obviously Trump saying that he may not even leave the White House? Chris, I can't hear you.
How's that?
There we go.
I was just going to say that I think that a constitution as strong as America's, they wouldn't allow a president to essentially squat in the White House when he obviously clearly lost his majority. Although, having said that, Donald Trump is definitely the kind of president who would give it a go. So, really, it's hard to know. Donald Trump has always been somebody who takes the world by surprise. and I don't think we're going to be disappointed this evening or in the subsequent days to come either.
Joseph, what do you think could happen if Donald Trump doesn't concede? Because I think with any kind of tradition with the US election, it's not actually in the Constitution that a president concedes, but it's a tradition that has always happened. So if he doesn't concede tonight, where do you think things could go?
Well, I'm just picked up a bit of your question with the sound on my end very crackly. I don't know if it's something with me or you, but my understanding of the legal proceedings behind this is that it could end up going all the way over to the Supreme Court. Now, if that occurs, and this could be very it's very controversial, given that Trump has just appointed a Supreme Court judge in the name of Amy Coney Barrett, and she is obviously a very right-wing judge, and she's very much in support of Trump kind of ideology. What I'm basically getting at is, if it does get that from that, unfortunately, is going to be very bad for the Biden campaign. Having said that, I think there are proceedings again, even after that, where it may even have to go through the House of Representatives, which again is a rather big irony, given and this is one thing that I don't think we have touched on yet, and it's almost kind of forgotten, given that that's what happened in the impeachment inquiry, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think obviously Amy Barrett is obviously a controversial figure at the moment in the US. So it will be interesting to see what happens with that. Catherine, you had a point to pick up on this.
Yeah, so if everything else fails, the House of Representatives gets to decide who is president. So if we do see a Republican House, it will be very interesting to see how far that Donald Trump would actually take it, whether he would take it all the way to the House.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point there. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens tonight. I think Biden is mainly hopeful for the evening. Obviously, we don't have any results just yet. We won't be expecting that till maybe about 1 o'clock in the morning for the first kind of results to come in. Obviously, we have mail-in ballot for a lot of states that are actually doing that early. All states do that early. Some do, some don't. So we'll have to kind of see what happens really for the rest of the evening. I think we're also having some technical difficulties because there's so much cracking going on. So I apologise for that. We're going to try and get that rectified. We'll try and carry on as much as we possibly can do before it all drives us crazy. But thanks to everyone who's watching on Facebook, Twitter, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well, from people from around the world. I hope they're going to be joining us this evening. Stay with us. It's gone past 11 o'clock here in the UK, and it's coming up for just after 6 p.m. on the eastern coast. Stay with us all night. We're going to be bringing you all the election results as and when they come in. We could be in for some big surprises, but we'll have to see what happens. So I think, in a way, from the first results when we get them in from Georgia, from North Carolina, those are obviously going to be the major two states that we're going to be looking at for tonight to see how this election could play out. If North Carolina went Democrat, how shocked would you be to see that happen? I'll come to you, Catherine.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question quickly?
Yeah, sorry. So obviously, the two results are obviously going to be coming in just after about 1 a.m., just after midnight afternoon. Will be Georgia and North Carolina. Obviously, if North Carolina turned Democrat, how do you think that kind of play out? And would that be a big shock, basically?
internet just completely went off and I didn't catch any of that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I said, if North Carolina went blue from the results later on tonight, would you be quite shocked by that?
Yeah, I think I would be. Don't think. I think it's going to be close, but I think Biden is going to take the election ultimately. It would surprise me if North Carolina did swing blue. Yeah, I don't really have anything.
Marcus, if North Carolina went blue, would you be quite shocked?
Yeah, I think it'd be surprising, but it's not impossible, you know. 15 electoral votes, which is not insignificant, so it'd be good for Biden. It's probably, I would say personally, in my opinion, one of the less likely ones for him to take. But who knows? I mean, I think anything could happen. So yeah, it'd be a strong one for him to take.
Yeah, no, it would. Chris, would you be quite surprised if North Carolina went blue? Ron, you?
Not used to muting and unmuting myself at the correct intervals. I would be surprised myself. I don't think much has been done in that particular state for Biden to win the votes needed. I mean, anything's possible, especially at the moment, but I cannot see him taking North Carolina himself.
Joseph, how would you think that North Carolina went blue? Would you be quite shocked, or would it be more expecting?
Well, first of all, I'd be absolutely delighted if anywhere went blue. But in this election, given what's at stake, I think what the results of the polling has shown, and I know we've already discussed polling at length on this, and I know that's a lot about what you're asking. It's showing a very level playing field there, without wishing to use the EU's terms in negotiations. I'm sure we'll come on to Brexit a bit later. But the fact of the matter is, it's stayed red now for quite some time. And although that's been the case, it doesn't have to always be like that. And again, I'm going to reflect it back here. Safe constituencies aren't always safe constituencies in this country. They can be to or fro either way. And as what happened at the last election, this has now become a marginal state in North Carolina. And I'm just trying to cast my mind back without looking at my screen. I think it was either North Carolina or South Carolina that actually got the Joe Biden campaign live and kicking, with, of course, the large black vote that they've got there. And it was, again, either North or South that really got Joe Biden away in the primaries, because he was actually really struggling before then, and he staged what I perceive to be one of the biggest political comebacks of all time. And yeah, it seems like so long ago now, at the start of the year when the Democratic primaries started. Yeah, and I know they don't have a massive amount of bearing on the actual election day results themselves, but they can still tell a story in themselves, and we can quite clearly see that Biden was quite popular in Carolinas. I might be wrong. It may have been South Carolina that got it kicked off. It was either North or South anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it was North Carolina when it all started, really. Yeah, so what I think we might need to do, because we're still having a lot of technical difficulties, is we might come off and we'll come back on about 11, so we can try and get technical difficulties sorted. We're receiving a lot of crackling, don't know why, and it's all across our social media networks. It's really annoying. We can't hear each other well, so we'll come off quickly and then I'll relaunch all in the next few minutes. So yeah, so Chris, Marcus, Joseph, Catherine, hang around. I'll send over the links to you and then we'll come back on shortly.
No, thank you.